Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Rugby League Roundtable. I'm your host James Graham, joined by the administrator Tony Mestrov, the coach Shane Flanagan and the player Aaron Woods. Boys, first off, no journalist here today.
Where is he?
Otherwise engaged. Got better things to do for this episode, but we will crack on anyway. We're going to be talking about the future of the game. I don't think Reedy would contribute much in this department anyway. That's why we've elected to sub him out of this one. We'll start with one of the thoughts or ideas around where the game could be going and the potential banning of the kickoff. Now, some in the know sort of say it is inevitable, so why don't we just act accordingly and just deal with that hardship of it now? Hand over to you, Shane Flanagan. You had the misfortune of seeing a player actually knocked out off the kickoff, a tackler, a defender. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, if you look at the numbers around it, the amount of kickoffs we have in a game compared to the amount of injuries we have in the game, it's minute. To be really honest, it is the first time in my coaching career, 20 or 30 years of doing it, that we've actually practiced kickoff technique. The positioning, who's making the tackle. I know when I was at Manly, Siebes was big on, who was making first contact about his edge back rower to have that first contact on his inside shoulder and so on. But, and it relies a little bit on your kicker as well to get it in that spot. But my thoughts are that we're addressing it and about how we address it, about being in good position. Is it one of their front rowers coming off the back fence that we need to be? Hey, listen, we're not going to win this collision. He's coming off a 20-metre run up. Yeah, we're coming down as a group, but he could change direction at any stage. Let's catch him and then take the momentum away from him and maybe, bum rush him backwards. So there's a bit of technique to it.
Because in the incident regarding Dragons centre Moses Sully, the causation, I think from memory, was Jaden Sewer.
Yeah, Jaden Sewer knocked him at the last.
Moved him off balance at the last little bit of work into the tackle that caused him to be into that position.
Yeah, exactly right. Jaden Sewer, they all had great intent. They wanted to go in and, make some good impact on the ball carrier, Jared Weir-Hargraves. But, he's done it for a long period of time too, and he knows what he's doing. He's very, very good at it, and he has late feet. He turns his body, and, you need to be smart on where you hit him, or do we catch him? For me, it'd be more about catching that kickoff, the player bringing the ball back. Instead of hitting him, driving him and trying to win that collision, let's catch him and win the tackle.
So a school of thought of less bull v bull, me v you, what winner takes all, as opposed to
straight line.
And now it's a management.
Yep.
It's a management, and it doesn't need to be that Mexican standoff.
Yep. Just thinking while you were talking there, maybe you're to blame here.
Head crash.
Because you did a couple. You were that bull that wanted to get down there, and it's hard to take away that, like I go out there and I say to I'm coaching James Graham, hey, from the kickoff, you get down there and you give it to whoever it may be, Sam Burgess on the other side of the field. And that's the bull v. That's what we love about rugby league, that we love that confrontation. I think we just got to tweak it a little bit. There's not big change needed.
Yeah, because there's certain advantages within the nature of our sport that you can gain by that. And the effect that it not only just has on the player, you get one up on your opposition, but also their teammates. Yep. So when I've played with people who I look up to in the past when I was coming through, if they ever got put on them, I suffer as well.
Yeah, I used to love probably just going a bit off. I used to love, when I was at the Roosters, Adrian Morley.
Yeah,
he never used to chase the kickoff. A lot of the time, when I remember Sticky used to go like, what's he doing here? And Mick Innes actually did it in our grand final in 2016. He just sort of hung back and let the collision happen, but then Adrian Morley would come from the back fence, get a run up and time the play two. And wipe him out on play two. And it was really effective. Catch on play one and wipe him out on play two. But that's why we love the game, those different type of tactics. So I think, the Moses Sully, there was a few this year that players got knocked out. Manly, a classic example. But we just need to tweak it, but we've got to be careful that we don't change the fabric of the game, the bull weave bull, but protect our players from head injuries and so on as well.
But it's also something you want to see in the game. Like it's collision.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, it doesn't happen all the time. The kickoff is what starts the game, sets the tone. You know, we speak about it all week. You say the bull v bull. But if they poke their nose through on that first carry, you know you've lost that first battle. You know, and that's a bit of an ego thing for us blokes in the middle. You want to win that. But now I reckon I'm with you, Flano. Like, instead of going after them, have that straight line, just try jack them up, hold them up, and then try drive them back. The days of the big collision off that kickoff, I reckon they're slowly going.
Yeah, and awareness of, hey, listen, if we just go down there and he has late footwork, because I'm going hard at him, I'm chasing down there fast, I've got a 30 or 40 metre chase here from the kickoff, and he has any late footwork,
Watch Penrith. They're the ones that do it really well. Like they don't go out and absolutely flog you. They just try to get what we call levers or hooks. They try to lift you up and they just take you back and they suffocate you.
Yeah, it's like Tolu in the semi this year, Manly. It puts you out of the game, doesn't it? The first tackle of the game, Tolu put his head in the wrong spot. I think it was Jared, and that was it. He went off, and then Jake put his head in the wrong spot in the second tackle. So I think it's more important that it's an impact on your team and a player goes off to a HIA. But I agree with the boys. I think we need to keep it, the kick-off, and it's about managing the technique. I think it goes back to technique, actually.
Well, it arguably does. I think, in the case of catching, you speak of an example like Penrith. Well, they are a well-oiled machine, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And sometimes when you're playing a game or a sport, you've got to do something different. And one of those things, doing something different, I'm imagining like a Spencer Leniu playing for Sydney Roosters. Can we outskill the Roosters? I don't know. But if you've got that alpha that sees Leniu off the kickoff and the devastating runs that he has, he's very hard to just manage. But imagine somebody from the opposition team taking him on, like what that would do to that team's confidence and the effect that would have on the Roosters as well.
If you're going to take Spencer on from the kickoff, if you can find me someone that can do that, I want to buy him because
it'd be very sought after.
A one-on-one with Spencer coming at that speed is just leading ourselves into that dangerous zone of concussion and so on. I think, with the Spencer, I'd be advising my team to manage him.
I'd say kick the other side.
Yeah.
You'd rather tackle someone like Terrell May or even Hargraves to that extent. They haven't got the leg speed where you catch the ball, he's got a 10, 15 metre runner.
We used to have Andrew Fafita on one side, and but they always used to kick off to Woodsy. That might be the reason.
And then you know what he used to do? He used to position himself in the middle under the post, remember?
Yeah, so
he's still looking for it.
But it's an interesting one. But I just think, from my perspective as a coach, it's something that I've never done, and I think it's definitely become part of the game that we need to practice technique.
I think for me, watching it, observing it, the Kohler one is a classic example when it comes to, what is the alternative? Because Kohler was knocked out off the kickoff. We pause play, and we have a tradition.
Technique.
Whether it was technique, it happened. And we can look for the causation and just whether it was. But if you ban the kickoff, the very next play, play the ball, a slow set restart, the same thing happens to a defender.
To Jake, who's got good technique.
Arguably the best. So, what is the alternative?
It was actually 2 plays later. So we had a play, Dominic Young gets tackled, but they caught it back. So they had another rest, and then it was that next play.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so for anybody that wants to talk about removing the kickoff, let's not say banning, but removing it, what are the alternatives in order to start the game, restart the game, or restart the half?
Aren't they talking about a short kickoff? I mean, the media are pushing this. I don't think anyone in the game's pushing it because we want to see the kickoff. I think it's a short kickoff from what I can hear.
So it would be limited into where you could land.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the
silly.
impact.
That's silly.
That's what I'm hearing, the alternative.
I don't like those short kickoff. I know you got to go short kickoff if you need possession. That's a tactic. But to start a game, basically, it's a 50-50 contest most of the time on those short kickoffs. And if the opposition gain possession there from the start of the game and they're on the 50-metre line, they could dominate the first 10 or 15 minutes of a game.
That's it's where they get the ball. Like if they go short 10, they catch it on the 40 instead of getting on the in-goal. Or the opposition can get it and they go straight.
The war of attrition is completely changed.
It's going to change the whole game because a start of an NRL game is usually an arm wrestle. There's a 5, a 6 minute, 7
That's what we speak about for a game. You want to go for that
arm wrestle.
First 5 sets.
The first team to break. Where is that first 5 sets? That and we're going to take away some other skills of the game where we're taking away a yardage set from a kickoff. We get to a 40-metre line. Our kicker comes into play. A big, the Nathan Clearys and all them, one of their biggest skill set is get to the 40-metre line, nail the kick into the corner, Burton and all them. If we're turning it over on the 50-metre line, we're going to go back to this short kicking game or running on last. It's taking away a really important skill of the game in kicking.
And the kickoff setups would be completely different if you're only allowed to go short. So players wouldn't be back on the try line, would they? They'd only really go back to the 40-metre or 30-metre line.
True.
It'd be completely different.
Well, there would be there'd be unintended consequences from changing the length of the kickoff, and then that would put other players in other situations in danger.
Creates more of a headache.
Well, it arguably does, and I think just there's no other way to restart the game without completely changing the fabric. And also, let's not deny the fact that, okay, Flano, you're talking about new techniques that could be brought in to mitigate that risk of receiving a concussion, which nobody wants to see and nobody wants to receive. But let's not kid ourselves that the fans love to watch it. They love that anticipation of every time I go to a game of football, watching the kickoff and that anticipation of, I'm okay to admit this, something bad could happen here.
Jimmy,
something brutal could happen.
What's the first thing in State of Origin you want to see?
The first run.
The first kickoff.
Whoever wins that toss in Origin, the winning of the toss in State of Origin, the question does not need to be asked by the referee about whether you kick off or you receive.
Yeah. Look, the only other would be a tap, wouldn't it? In the middle or turn the VR. Terrible.
But even with
it
the
just
tap,
takes sort of the game,
even
everything
with
away
the
from
tap,
the game.
So Spencer Leniu off a tap or any other aggressive running forward or back, outside back for that matter, running off the tap, it's going to be dangerous because the distances would be shorter. But that could mean Spencer Leniu, if there was a tap on the 20 to start the game, I'll use Spencer Leniu as an example, he could still start his run up from the in-goal area, run, and then Brandon Smith or Connor Watson taps in the ball and gives it to him then. And then the defence are only moving 10 metres, but he's got more run-up. Yeah. So it creates arguably more of a danger.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, like, as I said at the start, Jimmy, I just feel that we've had a few this year, and I reckon nearly all the coaches will address it, and the playing group are fully aware that, hey, listen, we need to be careful and our techniques needs to be good. And I think as the game rolls on, we'll find a happy medium there because we still want. You've used him a few times, Spencer Leniu off the back fence.
Nathan Brown at Manly, he ignites the crowd. When he was there, he came to Manly, he wanted to make a bit of a name for himself. He'd been on the outer at a number of clubs. They call him back fence Brown. He brought something different to that football club. Was a bit of a cult hero. Like without that run, does he make that bigger impact?
Well, it takes a bit away from his play, doesn't it? But look, the crowd love it. Like it gets them behind Brownie and Brookie and got the team rolling forward. Would you know that? But look, I just don't think it's going anywhere. I just don't think, like we've spoken about, by the time you analyse it, there's too many changes that impacts on the game in a bad way, not a positive way. If we talk about changes, and we have during these sessions, like you want to enhance the game, not make the game worse. You want to make it more attractive.
I think what Flano said before, the amount of kickoff runs we have to the amount of injuries that we get from the kickoffs, it's very minimal.
Yeah, true.
It's not. It's only that we've seen some bad ones recently. Obviously, the semi-final with Melbourne Storm was a big talking point start of the game. But for the amount of kickoffs we have in the game to the injuries that we receive from kickoff runs, it's not really. Not really that bad.
It does generate headlines because usually these collisions are so spectacular. They're at those paws in play. They've got a number of eyeballs on them, so it naturally creates an easy headline for people that, for whatever reason, want to criticise the game or make a point about the game, whether they even agree with it or not. Just on things like player safety in the European Super League, they are now looking to lower the tackle count to below the nipple. I'm frightened about where this could lead the game going in the UK.
So in the Super League, you can't tackle lower than the
below the nipple. So if you tackled the shoulder, that will be a penalty.
So how do you make a tackle off the kickoff?
Well, Lord above knows.
The hard thing is is how do you adjudicate on it?
Who come up with this?
You're going to go to the bunker every time there's a.
I'm fearful of how bad the product could become. And even, you look at something like the UFC, there's an attraction to violence there. And how we change in time, it's important to note that we make advancements. So the UFC 200 years ago would have been seen by the general population as over-refereed. There's too many rules in this. Although now in today's modern society, it's a brutal and violent sport that some people despise and some people love. But with the game of rugby league, it is naturally gladiatorial. But like, can we afford to do that? Can we afford to lower that tackle height?
We're all about fastening the game up and making it a spectacle and bringing the skill in to our game, especially the NRL. I think it's as fast as probably can get. It'll still continue in different parts, but that tackle below the nipple is just going to slow the game down, and penalty after penalty. Just thinking when you're talking, James, that I think, as I said, I've done this for a while now. I reckon some players say we go 100 gamers. I reckon a 100-game player now this year, some of them would not have had a HIA because of the change of the game. A 100-game player, when I was playing and Messi was playing, there's no chance you would get through having playing 100 NRL games without a concussion. But because of the changes to the game and looking after the players, that I feel that there'd be. Use my young bloke for an example. He's probably had a few, question marks, a bit daisy here and there, but he's never had a really bad concussion, touch wood. And I think that'd happen to a lot of players, that they would play 100 games because of the changes in the game, that they've escaped that head injury, concussion type, concern. So the game has changed considerably and it cares for our players.
Yeah, we've advanced in that way, but I just think we need to acknowledge the low tackle. Maybe not the nipple, but maybe you get an opportunity if you tackle lower, it's a slower play. I don't know how, but I've spoken about it before, about you don't get a reward for a low tackle. Right?
Those days are gone. The bootlaces are
maybe
gone.
you reward. I don't know how you do it, but that rule's not going to work.
The only way you could get reward for tackling low is if another player is allowed to join and grip on top.
But then you're sort of laying in a ruck and not making a movement.
Exactly. Well,
the loser of this, Jimmy, I reckon, is the referees, because they've already got so many other things to officiate. And then when it comes to making a tackle on the chest, we're going to hate them even more.
Well, a low tackle can only really be executed one-on-one out wide. The only opportunity in the middle, you're moving up together. Yep. You can't just go low. You put yourself in a vulnerable
And if you go
position.
low, you got more risk of knocking yourself out, getting your head in the wrong position, like Tolu Kola off the kickoff against Jared Hargraves.
I think as well, because of the benefit of the offload in our game, like a lot of coaches talk about play the ball with and without the ball. So if you've got a defender coming in that can only go the nipple the maximum, you've got
going to be loose. It's going to be available.
You're going to be available for the value of the offload, which is already high in terms of priority for attack. Lock up the ball, but also speed of the play the ball. It's almost impossible.
Solomon will never get tackled to the ground. He'll just stand up and throw it around.
Well, it's interesting because what about the smaller, the shorter player? Up be the bigger, tall, like you.
How are we going to get down and tackle someone like Toto right around his legs?
Yeah, but you're literally below the nip.
Unbelievable.
Like I don't know how they're going to implement this change.
So it's been passed. It's going to be happening.
It's kicking off in season.
And how do they come up with that rule? Like who?
Well, player advisory board and the fear of litigation, the fear of class action, the inability to insure the players is basically what has driven the RFL to implement these changes.
There's a class action going on around head injuries.
It's class action, but it's also insurers that insurers deem it.
They won't insure.
You've got to change the laws in order for us to insure the players.
Protected, fair enough.
Are we going down the route of part of the contract maybe being you waive your rights, not too dissimilar to a UFC athlete, a mixed martial arts athlete, a professional boxer, amateur boxer, where that is written into contract, like there is an inherent danger of the game. We are going to best practice is this around concussion, but you cannot come after us.
Can I answer this, like, as an administrator? I just think that's where the game's going, right? It's whether you like it or not. There's class actions. There'll be more, and people say, I don't want to sue the game I love, but people get talked into it. It is a problem, the game, and already you've seen the changes in the HIAs just to service that. So I'm a bit worried, like the future of the game, that the game might have to pay at one stage. And I reckon it's probably the biggest impact on the game that I can see as a danger is the head injuries, like around the finances of the game and where we're at. And I know the NRL got really proactive, and as Flano said, we're advancing, we're going really well, but then you got to kind of balance that up with the game itself, don't you?
Yeah.
Like that's going to take away from the game as we know it, and I just don't think we want to do that. But like I said, you need to work out how you reward the low tackler, and it's not in that way, let me tell you.
There's so many sports that, have not as high risk as rugby league, but there are a lot of sports that, have similar, and waivers and, I'm not the legal side of things, but, when you sign an NRL contract, you're nearly, saying, hey, I understand the risks. I understand the risk, but it's not from a legal perspective. I know what you're probably saying, Jimmy, that contract doesn't say, hey, I knew that down the track when I retire and I'm 60 years old, I could have these effects.
And the game should have saved me from myself, which is one of the arguments.
Do you reckon that'll come into contracts now?
I think it could.
I reckon it could.
Yeah. I was a bit concerned when I went skydiving. They made me sign a waiver. So what's
too heavy, Flano?
No, I'm just saying, what's this? Because we ain't trust the bloke to pack the parachute, or like what's going on there? But there's so many things. You go on a roller coaster and all these type of things. Sign waivers, and it's getting to that point that the degree of risk and people taking. Protecting themselves or the game protecting themselves, it might be part of a contract.
I think the game does a good job now, but Flano, like compared to when I started and what they do when you do get a HIA now. Like we had Lachlan Croker this week. I think, what did he miss, 7 weeks nearly? And he was just getting little headaches, and they just wouldn't risk him at all. I think Bloomy, he's out.
Yeah, the doc did an amazing job bringing him back. It was absolutely a slow process, but the right process. And he's got no issues at all. But he went through.
I disagree with that. Lachlan Croker's got a lot of issues.
I agree with that. But the thing is, like, if that was when I first come through the grade, they'd be like, mate, just get back out there, just play and just train.
Well, almost the culture around it would be you'd be too
you're weak
afraid
if you
to be almost admitting it.
The best thing they did was take it out of the players' hands. Basically, if you got any symptoms, you're not allowed to train. I think even the protocol back to running after when you've had a head knock is completely different.
The protocols were right. I mean, Paul Bloomfield was chief medical officer at the NRL. Like, he's the best in the game in my eyes. We're going through this whole.
We've even got that
the heat policy.
Training.
Yeah, the heat policy. Yeah, where you reduce the. We've actually got a helmet,
it's like an ice pack to your head.
Reduce the ice. So that's an innovation. Probably no other team's doing. So he's at the forefront of trying to benefit that. And look, we're advancing, but look, at the end of the day, the danger's still there around the legalities of it,
and the risk of concussion, impact, traumatic brain injury. Degenerative brain issues manifesting either because of or in conjunction with playing sport. Maybe the way to solve this problem is to have it in writing. I think, in fact, it's the only way to completely solve the problem. So, look, the players are aware, they take full responsibility. You're compensated financially, you're compensated with lifestyle, you're compensated in so many other ways for engaging in arguably inherently risky sport. Like if you go free climbing, and you fall, the loved ones and the family members of the individual that fell off the face of a rock can't blame the sporting governing body because it's kind of inherent in the risk.
I don't know if the NRL have actually gone down this road and had a look at it, because they would have. There's no doubt about it.
Considering what would be stopping them though? Because for me, it does seem like a, pardon the pun, no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the legal advice, but they would have looked at it. There's no doubt to try and waiver it. There's no doubt to avoid the class actions.
To avoid it, to say, hey, it was part of your contract. Yeah. In terms of the future of the game, artificial intelligence, new technologies, in shoe technology, we've seen advancements in that and how that can aid performance. Things like breathing can aid performance. Flano, for you as the head coach of the Dragons currently speaking, a lot would have changed in your career as a coach. Where can you see the game going when it comes to bringing in more technology and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, well, sports science took a huge leap, probably for the last 10 years about the way we train and getting athletes fitter, faster and stronger. Obviously, the way people train in the gym is complete. Like, when I was playing, or, even when I was coaching, the early days, they'd go into the gym and some of the exercises were, bench press, squat, power clean, all that sort of stuff. The exercises they do now are absolutely ridiculous. You would never see them.
Weights with bands.
Yeah, weights
everything.
with bands, and and then obviously some of the equipment we've got now at the Dragons, they measure when you're obviously your speed down, and then obviously how much speed and power you produce up, and it's all on a computer in front of you, and it tells you if that's good enough. And
Comes up straight away.
Yeah,
Just
it comes
quickly,
up straight away.
weights with bands isn't like half the team are doing weights and the other one's got the guitar, one's got
Rubber
a
bands.
violin.
So
I'd just used to flick them at school. It'd be so hard to concentrate.
Don't worry, I didn't do much of them. Have a look at it.
But it has changed.
Yeah.
Where it goes next, who knows? Obviously, as I said, the way they players train now is probably the biggest change over the last 10 years, and and it's the complete athlete. The way they sleep, the way they eat. Some clubs track their sleeping. Obviously,
You guys are like one of the most advanced with Andrew Gray.
Yeah,
Like, he used to have a ring that we
used to
wear.
have this probably 8-10 years ago now. The players all used to have a sleep ring, and it used to give us all that information about how quality of sleep, how much they had, and so on. So
What's that machine he's got as well?
in-body scanner, yeah. So an in-body scanner, we got one at the Dragons now, and we had one at the Sharks, for a long period of time, and that measures. Your muscle mass, gives you, obviously each limb, how much your left leg, right leg, calf, quad, shoulders, arms, gives you the whole muscle mass.
That's for injury prevention and
and it gives
when you're
you
coming back from injury, what
if you've had any muscle mass loss, and then it obviously gives
And fat boys.
fat, water content, your skeletal mass. So there's a lot into it.
so there's things that you can implement, like strategies you can, based off the evidence
Yes.
out of the scan, you can start to bespoke and individualize a training program based off that individual's needs.
Yeah, well, because, for example, we could have a player in a front row position, and we've got all the data from our previous front rowers, James Graham, Aaron Woods, all these players, and then we send a young player in there and say similar height, similar build, and we say this is for an example, these are the type of players where we need to get you to. James Graham had 55% muscle mass. He was 6'2" and all this sort of stuff, and so it gives us a guide, and that guide is one to get the athlete to his ultimate his best. But also, as you said, about a lot of this stuff is about injury prevention and resilience, and be able to stay in the game for a long period of time. Not 4 or 5 games and you're gone.
I think that's the same as those force plates. Like, a lot of blokes that come back from injuries, if you've got shoulders, like you sort of, like when you do your prehab and rehab, you can lay on the ground and you can force down, and it shows you the strength of the opposite one, where you got to get back to as well. Just little things like that when you come back from injury. They've come a long way, and then you're not allowed to return to contact and all those sort of things until you've got a certain percentage where they're right next to each other.
Physios used to live in the physio room and massage and treat and that, and obviously apply some ultrasound and all those type of different equipment to injuries. Now they spend most of their time in the gym. So it's a bit of a change there as well. I think, obviously our physios are about rehabilitation, but injury prevention and identifying, weak areas. Because very rarely do you get an athlete, even if they've played a lot of NRL, that come and they're the complete model. They've got no, they've got good quad strength, they've got no hamstring problems, their shoulders are intact. So you've always got to do something. And that obviously to identify the weaknesses in individuals is definitely picked up, and it's been proactive because players have a lot more NRL game career.
I think also you've got to try and bring in world-class staff, and you talk about Andrew Gray, we brought in John Clark. John Clark you would have played against Clarkie.
Good man.
He's a good man, and he was at England with Eddie for 6 years, England Rugby Union, but he's world class in my eyes. He's brought in a strength and conditioning coach. We identify as a club we need to be stronger. So we brought in a guy from the All Blacks. He's an elite strength coach. So it's trying to get those people as well, because they do bring in the technology and they're trying to push the boundaries.
What happened?
What happened? What?
Oh, I'm gone now. So
Sorry.
that's what happened. The poor old Bez got resold.
I didn't resell you, mate. Come on.
Sorry, Bez, let you down.
No, you're right, mate. Look, from our point of view, like I said, you've got to keep advancing as a club and push the boundaries in a good way.
Flana, I want you to come with me on this, right?
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
I put my VR goggles on.
Yep.
You've got your VR goggles on. We've played the game on a Friday night. I'm an edge defender. I've made a certain decision. We have the VR goggles on, and all that data, all that information is put in, and now I'm back in that same situation. Do you think it's possible to have that technology where you can walk me through what I should have done? Or let's go, we're looking at that's the review element of here's what I believe you should have done as a player in exactly the same position. You see exactly the field, the exact same situation with all the camera angles, all the data put into this machine to replicate that situation. Or we're previewing, I'm a middle defender. I'm going to preview Penrith's middle attack.
Yep.
This is what Mitch Kenny has done in a multitude of situations. Here's the most likely through AI. It's going to be trained up to know exactly what style of attack Penrith middles are going to come against me as a middle defender at the Dragons, for example. And you can walk me through what you want to do. Am I living in a pipe dream, a fairy tale, or is that coming to coaching soon?
No, I think you're right. I think it is coming to coaching. We've taken a few steps, and I don't think they've been really successful in that. Some of the players wear glasses where they've got a camera and they record a lot what they're looking at, so we can record what that player's looking at. Sometimes we would use them because the player's always looking at the ruck and he's not looking up and what's in front of him, and we can address it that way. But what you're talking about is definitely down the track. I'm not quite sure when, but what I do know is it's not that far away. Me and Andrew Gray went to Red Bull High Performance Facility in the US, and some of the visualization stuff through racing car drivers, they can just sit there and they can go through that process of racing sitting in their lounge room.
Yeah, with the race car simulator. It can literally replicate.
Don't you think that's easier because they've got their helmets on? They can sort of go through, like they can see what they're going through when they're driving. How are we going to do that? How are we going to film that when we're actually playing?
Well, you don't actually need the camera on the helmet. You can actually use cameras from around the field that take in. I think you need 7 cameras to track everything and feed all that information into one supercomputer that then replicates the exact situation, kind of like how Hawkeye works. Things like that. That uses a heap of data from a multitude of camera angles to replicate the situation. So at Red Bull, they were,
and then that was a couple of years ago now, but they were using that equipment to train their drivers about what they were seeing and so on. And I think that's definitely the path. They had a couple of other sports there, like high diving, and they used exactly the same thing. That they'd get the high diver on a platform and they would just jump into a foam pit. But they would have that they were diving off a cliff and they have to simulate their turns. And I think so many different sports at Red Bull High Performance Facility were using that technology 3 or 4 years ago. So we're not too far away.
And obviously you'd have a statistician within the realms of the Dragons that would look at, and it's not that difficult to look at trends of other teams and figure out if they favour they're attacking to the left or the right, when they, the periods of the game that they manage well, periods that they potentially don't.
Yep.
Like, how much more information do you think the coaches can gain? And almost you just become a mouthpiece for the AI that's saying, we're playing Newcastle this week. We have to kick to this area. We have to attack this edge. Here's the setup plays based off of all this evidence. There's our game plan. You are basically the mouthpiece for the computer telling you what to do.
There's a lot of information and a lot of stats at the moment. We get things like, for example, post a penalty, the Manly are 99% chance of conceding a try, on their left-hand team, and all these type of things.
You look at trends.
Yeah, we're looking at trends. We've got to understand that the coaches get a lot of information, that much information that you could paint any sort of picture that you wanted to your playing group, but the playing group have got to be able to soak that information up or take that information up, and are they capable of doing it? James Graham might be able to, playing next to him mightn't sink in, So we've got to be careful that we educate our playing group. You can educate coaches and have all this stuff, but you need to be able to, they've got to be sponges for information, and they've got to be able to then obviously take it in and then be able to deliver it out on the football field under fatigue. I hope we don't get to that point that we just have natural footballers come through the game. Kids that play in the park learn how to beat a man by practice in the park, not watching a computer game.
Yeah. Do you think maybe the advancement of coaching, and obviously when you think of when I think the best coaches made it simple and they didn't overload you with information. Some do employ that tactic, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do you think maybe for you as the coach then is having all these different data points and going, well, you know what, my team, I need to decide, and whether you use artificial intelligence to help you decide what those messages are and different players within the group and how they receive information, it's just cherry picking that best bit of info, and maybe it already is that way.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think a lot of coaches will just pick out what they need to. I think at the NRL level, a lot of coaches will have in their have enough information, from watching games, and they've got a plan even before they get there, and they will use the information to support their plan. And some coaches, I don't want to talk because I've never been with Wayne, but I'd imagine that his plan is pretty simple, and he wouldn't be using too much of the other stuff to get across the, natural talent and his coaching.
And almost like installing belief in your message, having trust that your message, if we're going to play a certain way, here's the evidence that it works.
Yeah, and sometimes at different stages I've used stats and information to support players to get them back to where I need to be. Like, hey, listen, you are a good player. I'm showing you some stats. You'll fight your way out of that, and you can use stats that way as well. So,
I reckon the other thing is a lot of players are different too. Each player, some players like all the stats and information. Other players, less is better.
Yeah, Paul Gallen's a good example of that. He'd like to see where his stats. Did he carry enough? His meters and all that sort of stuff. But he never needed to watch too much video because he knew whether he played well or not, and he didn't have to watch too much of opposition. He just knew some trends here and there because he knows his job. Where some younger kids these days, they love it. They absolutely thrive.
The first thing they check on as soon as they get is their phone.
Their phone, their stats and information.
Well, everyone's growing up with smartwatches, aren't they? So your heart rate's, it's almost paralysis by analysis sometimes. And with the game of rugby league, I'm not quite sure where it's going to go in a coaching realm, but I think early adopters to certain technology might be just slightly ahead of the curve. Just on the field itself, I've been laughed at for suggesting there will be robot referees. The grand final, my solution for whether or not Penrith scored that infamous no try would have been a smart field with a smart ball. It would have just been instantaneous. We would have known. Yeah, if the field was a smart field and the ball, you would know, did the ball object touch the field object? Yes or no? It would have told us.
Has your view to information, statistics changed since you were playing? Because I remember you a little bit when you were playing that you didn't need too much information.
No, I didn't. That came with experience on knowing certain cues, like where and when I could be effective, where and when I needed to really focus. I think in terms of where the game's at and moving out of that player role into, I guess, commentator / pundit role is about how we can advance and make the game better with technology. And obviously we've seen the advancement with the video referee, like, back when you were playing Flanagan, imagine the scenes when there would have been a TV, a huge screen, and before that as well, like a screen at every game, they would have laughed at you, the video ref, the bunker. But if we introduce technology, it helps get more decisions
Not that old.
correct more of the time. So for example, a smart fit would have solved the conundrum of the grand final.
Yep.
How would that have solved the?
Well, because if the field was a smart field and the ball was a smart ball,
It would have recognised.
it would have recognised contact with the field. The ball would have recognised, so a computer would have spat out the answer, similar to like how VAR works now, and you can see whether the ball has crossed the line. And mate, we're talking like a hairline of whether the ball has completely passed the line.
Yeah, but it's not about passing the line; it's about hitting the line.
Yeah, I know, but if the field...
But what if there's a hand on the ball?
If it's touch sensitive to one particular object, i.e. So if this pen...
I still don't think you'll get it right.
Okay, let's go. This coffee cup is the ball, right? It's got sensors in it, intelligent sensors. The field has intelligent sensors.
Yeah.
They know if object A touches that field. This is my hand. That coffee cup
Jimmy,
is not
what if
touchable.
a piece of grass is ripped off and it hits a piece of grass that's not on the ground?
Would you're creating more
So are you.
I like your. Well, maybe it's a synthetic turf that is used. That
I think it's
just
a bullshit idea.
But it would solve problems.
Look, we're having an argument over it right now.
It would solve problems. People would have said the same thing about using. How can you ever use video evidence to solve the problem of whether or not it's a try? I think it would work. It would solve that issue. You would have incident. Okay, you saying like one blade of grass. Well, you'd say that okay, it needs to touch. Then therefore 10 blades of grass.
So now you're getting stupid. If the grass is ripped off, if a piece of grass is ripped off the thing, and you say it's got to touch a piece of grass, what if it's not connected to the ground, and the ball hits it?
Well, then it's a try.
No, but it's not connected to the ground. The grass is.
But where's the
off.
grass?
Say it was on one of the players.
On one of the players. Well, again, I'm sure the supercomputer nerds would be able to come up with a solution to that. But in simple terms, has object A, i.e. the ball, touched the grass? Yes or no? Simple answer. Your problem solved when it comes to the grand final, no try.
But the VRs work really well, though. That's what you're talking about. The VR, it's worked well. Like, it doesn't get it wrong.
It's got its issues. Yeah. It's got its teething problems.
So it has got issues.
Of course it has.
I just feel that why we love rugby league, because it's played by not perfect people, and the game is never ever going to be perfect. We're human. We're going to make errors. Referees are going to make errors. And in the end, it gives us, especially this crew here, jobs, because we talk about it.
Well, we can never moan about it then.
And if we're asking to get to a point what you're talking about, the perfect game.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, what are we going to talk about?
Well, again, I've wrestled with this because be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
If we get every decision right by the laws of the game, it could be a bloody long afternoon or like a damn long evening.
Yeah. I just think, with... I don't want to see a robot referee, and I want to see referees are going to make decisions that we might not agree with, but it could be right. And some days I do agree with them, some days I mightn't agree with them. Players are going to
based off how it goes first. Yeah. The fans are exactly the same.
That's why they go to the game. If it's perfect, players don't make mistakes, referees don't make mistakes. Grandstands won't be full.
Yeah, true. Just don't want the howler, I reckon. That's the only thing. We're trying to take that. Yeah, we're going to take the howler out, whether it's a forward pass or whatever. So I agree. Every week you get the frustration because you just want to win, right? You got to win for your club. But
look at you two trying to keep the referees on side.
It's a joke, isn't it?
It's November.
I know.
Guys, the match officials won't be tuning into this. We understand. We'll clip this. Let's clip this.
I reckon before I come here, mate, you be bad cop, I'll be good cop.
I reckon. Players. It does. Yeah, if a referee makes a mistake, then so be it.
I reckon we've got short memories from last year when I was just totally pissed off with a few refereeing decisions. But you forget pretty quickly, don't you, Flano?
I love the saying from some coaches, and I think I might have said it once or twice, that, we got a bad decision, but, we'll get it back at another time.
That's the best.
We'll get it back at another time.
That's the best.
It does swing in roundabouts, you do get some hard calls, but then you get some calls your way. So that's what you're saying.
On those hard calls, one of the arguments is if the technology is there to eradicate that bad call, then why not use it? You look at things like tennis, that the Hawkeye system, with the cricket and the system that they used and prediction of was that going to be an LBW or not. Like they use technology to take away from the subjectivity of it and actually make that. The one in cricket, it uses all the information from the ball, the trajectory, the speed, the pitch, makes an accurate prediction of whether or not it was hitting wicket and whereabouts, pitched outside, inside. I don't understand the exact intricacies of cricket, but I understand where the technology or how the technology is used in order to make an accurate prediction.
But if you use your challenges early, you don't get the opportunity to use that. So once again, we're going back to the imperfect. That's why we love sport, because now James Graham, the captain of that cricket team, do we use a challenge here or do we not use it? When captain's challenge in rugby league, do I go early or we
not
go
first
late?
10?
No, or don't trust front rowers or what?
Well, again, maybe you don't go first 10, but maybe you do.
Yeah.
Because
especially if you know it's right.
If you know it's right.
Yeah.
I think there's some classics in the grand final, wasn't there? Some really good decisions, challenges early, which make a difference.
They do make a huge difference. I guess I'm on my own in robot referees and smart fields. The growth of the game, Tony, I'll come to you.
I'd love to see you talking to a robot as captain of a team, going up.
That is a shocker.
Pointing that stubby little finger of yours and trying to get a reply from a robot.
Behind the back trying to manipulate the computer. It takes away the relationship which can be manipulated and then people argue, that team's favoured. Solve some problems. It might create some, but I think it solves some.
If we can take out the 3 Symbians we've got this year, then I'll agree with it, mate.
Well, hey, Tony, we've just said everyone makes mistakes. It's only human.
As long as it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, of course.
Flat out true.
Yeah, that's it. In terms of this game expanding and growing, the worth of the game, we've seen the NRL implement strategies to buy hotels and looking to keep on going in that and grow the value of the sport. Where do you see this going, Tony?
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that the NRL tried to purchase trying to be stronger and grow the revenue stream. I think whatever way we can do to grow the game, but more broadly, grow the revenue pie, I think is the most important thing. We've spoken about expansion. I think that's a really important thing, including UK. I think at the moment, the UK are really struggling, and I still think they play a pivotal part in the growth of the game and the revenue in the game, because don't forget, the biggest part of our game still is the broadcast deal, and how do we broaden the broadcast deal? Right, that's really important. But also, I'm worried about participation, because I think we're losing the battle to AFL and the Soccers, with the head knocks and the concerns by parents. I just think participation is probably stopping us from reaching our potential, and we need to put more. I want to see more money in grassroots. I reckon that's a real blight in a game. I don't think enough money goes into the country areas.
How do they fix it if they put more money towards it?
The grassroots?
Yeah.
I think we should. You've been forever and a day. You would have Flano in the day. You go to the country areas and you develop the kid. They love it. And people just want to talk about footy. I reckon as a game, we do that occasionally, right? But we've gone away from it. I'd like to see some funds, because I think that's part of the growth of the game into our heartland areas, which is the country areas. But also, we are losing some battles in certain areas around AFL just because of that, the head knocks and the nature of our game. But I just think that's a growth area and we need to invest in.
For the new TV deal or the new broadcast rights deal, do you see it increasing price per game or whole pie with inflation included from what it currently was? I
think it will. If you look at the NFL model, they've got Google involved and other, you need to get, I think the streaming is an important part of the growth. I think we need to stream. In America, they have all kinds of, they actually go to tender and they got an amazing amount back because they got the streaming involved, and that's where the growth area is, not necessarily with the broadcasters we've got. It's a broader piece, and I think that's where we're going as a game, and that's how we'll grow the game and grow our pie.
The how streaming services have looked to dominate in US. They took one of the broadcast rights packages for the English Premier League as well. It's only available on that particular streaming service, and it's a great way for those companies to drive more traffic through them. They use the sport as an avenue to gain more consumers, gain more customers.
Yeah, if you have the younger people, my daughters included, they're streaming. They're looking at streaming. They don't watch the TV anymore. No one, like watching the 6 o'clock news is a thing of the past for the young people. They don't do it. They just look at the streaming and they're just on their phone. So I think we need to grab hold of that, and we need to follow the American, the NFL model where they do that.
What do they do? So what do they do over there with that?
They're Google and Amazon and so on. They're doing deals with them as well as broadcasters. So they did tender. They went to a tender process, and they're getting maximum revenue you can get.
Wow. Well, they know the value of live sport.
Yep.
It's arguably the only thing people set their clock to tune into. Most series shows, most movies, I'll watch it whenever I'm ready to watch it. Like Tony's saying, that the 6 o'clock news, we watch the news because it's ready to go. It's no, we watch the news because I want to watch the news.
That's it.
Because I can. And with live sport, it's the only thing that's like, no, we're going because it's 8 o'clock on Friday. It's time to go now. So all eyeballs go to that. There's not really, it's not as entertaining as watching it later. People talk about it. It's hard, almost,
the result, basically.
It's hard to avoid now. In the past, maybe, but I think with live sport, you've got this connected to community. It's one of the only things you have to be there at a certain time to witness. And I think any TV network, radio network, streaming service, anything that has that content, it is so valuable because it's about the only thing that does that. One of the things in America is the popularity of the behind the scenes access. Flano, you as a coach, again, as a player, I would have hated this, changed a lot. Is it time for us to allow more access behind the scenes, and can the future of the game be impacted by compulsory NRL teams allowing one of those American-style shows that go behind the scenes of each NFL club?
Yeah, well, a couple of clubs have dabbled in that area. I suppose it all depends. A club have big media departments now, and they do get a lot of content, and they are at all training. They're in and around the sheds and so on. I think the thing holding it back is head coaches.
It is.
Because unfortunately, we get a little bit pedantic about what we're showing, and
giving tactics away.
Giving tactics away.
Yeah.
But to be, as I said, I've had to change and allow it to happen. And
We did last year.
Siebes is good at it.
You're not asking them to video your training sessions and your set plays and put them on
team meetings.
and
But I
team.
mean,
But you remember when Madge did it? Like, he got portrayed really poorly in it.
He did.
in Tiger
All
Town,
the swearing.
But again, if those are happening every year, then it's head coaches swear. Where in times of crisis, things can get aggressive. Things can get out of hand. Like it. I wasn't surprised by anything I witnessed in Tiger Town.
I think if any bloke that's been in the footy industry, no one was surprised.
But for me, really, it should have been a great insight from the general public to be like, oh wow, that's
But do you think that scared a lot of people from the backlash that he's copped from it?
Well, but he's obviously doing success. He's doing well now, and I think to Flano's point, that level of paranoia, like, they're going to know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But probably most teams already do know what the Dragons are going to do. Like they're watching on video.
Most are doing the same too.
Yeah. I did one this year. It was my first week leading into our first game against the Titans. So they did the day by day and they put it on our club's website. And in review, I watched it. They did half time. We won. So obviously the whole dynamics changed. I'm looking at it through different lenses now because we won that football game. But I think I understand why clubs do it and need it. To your point about doing some really good stuff behind the scenes, I think it's going to happen.
You want that one warts and all, and it's almost parking that self-interest and go, well, it's for the greater good of the game because it brings more eyeballs. The impact of the F1 drive to survive, has grown that sport beyond belief.
Yeah, I think the NRL are going to do a Vegas this year. I think they're doing a video, but it's interesting that in Vegas, Matty Johns wanted to come on the bus on the way to the game in Vegas and see set no, I got no problem with it. And then he asked the senior players, they said, no, we want to concentrate on the game. So it comes from the players as well, because they're under pressure to perform as well. It's not only the coach. The coach might go, you know what, I think it's okay, but Siebes, he's open to it, right? The Manly way was a really good insight, and we did that last year, what we do. But I think the players as well are under the part. They want to perform. They're there to win, basically, but they're there for the greater good of the game as well.
I think, probably Australia, Great Britain, rugby league in particular, probably that's their way, and it's something new. Where if you look at the States,
I'm watching one at the moment, the starting five with the basketball. I watch the wide receivers. Really
in the
good.
States, it's just not. It's
part of the
culture. It's part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's cameras on the bus. There's a TV celebrity on the bus. Well, so what? We're just going to crack on.
I love the quarterback one. It shows the 3 or 4 quarterbacks from the NFL. That wasn't that much in the dressing room or at training. It was about them away, about their family.
Human interest story.
Yeah. That's what I liked, how completely different the 3 or 4 players were. One was really, his missus used to talk to him about his name and his game plan, and all that sort of stuff. And it was just really different. I enjoyed that, and I think, there will come to a point I would watch. If Manly put stuff on about their training, and I don't really want to watch too much of that. But if there's a story about what Tom Trbojevic does away from football and his life, and maybe stuff he does for charity and all, I'm watching it.
Do you watch the video where they push Jake in the water like Ben did? Yeah, that's great.
That was great.
So that's great. That's what people want to see. But
I want to see that you're normal people outside footy.
They do.
Get up to.
They do. Jake was blowing up was good. But I think that there's some form of intrusion. We still see that intrusion by the media. We're still at that level. We're not quite at that US.
That's what we see it as. But maybe if it became more normalised or became normalised, it would just be.
That's the way we do it. Yeah,
that's the way we do it.
There's still when I'll put my hand up here. There's still a lot of lack of trust.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's still a lot of lack of trust because. This industry, there's a lot of competition to get stories and all that sort of stuff. We know that, but there's still a lot most NRL clubs. There's a lack of trust, and we need to erode that or cover it up a little bit more.
Wish our man was here.
Yeah, where is he?
Example.
Yeah,
he'll be back for the next episode. Final thoughts, gents. A prediction about the future of the game, Tony. I'll come to you.
I think the future looks good. I think any way we can advance. I think we've spoken before about technology. I know you spoke about over-the-line technology, but I'd still like to see the forward pass technology. I know what's going on, but I think that's the one I'd like to see change. But I think you're not going to win the robot being the ref. I don't think you're going to win that. You still need that human element. We've got to keep the howler out of it, but I'd like to see the refs stay. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to getting to a 20-team competition and playing everyone once. There'll be a little bit of a break during the origin period, have that over a 6-week period that, there's just standalone origin. It'd be great for me. I know I'm come back from the old days when Wednesdays you just race home from school and get ready for origin. That was fantastic.
So
but 20-team competition, play everyone once. Reverse the draw, you play away, play Manly away, and the next year you get them at home and all that sort of stuff. I think that'd be great for the game.
4 points for us. Last year.
Depends which halfback you sign.
We beat him down at Wollongong. If he gets that done.
No. And he texted me 2 days later and said, "We're still friends."
Yeah.
Woodsy, apart from media personalities being paid in Bitcoin, what are you?
Oh, Jesus. At the moment, with Trumpy coming in too. Honestly, the kickoffs, keep them. Flano mentioned that they're actually practicing how to, juggle, how to work with the kickoff runs defensively. I love watching the game. Flano mentioned Origin before. My favourite part of the Wednesday night is who wins the toss and who's doing the kickoff. So please keep them, but teams come up with ways to combat it.
Perfect. All right, that's just about enough for the future of the game.